Everybody's good. Seeing y'all pop on. Happy Monday. It's Monday, right? Yes, it's Monday. All right, we'll give it a couple minutes. People are flying on here. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Can you believe we're in week 12? It's crazy. Very crazy. Oh, look at all your beautiful faces. So cute. Can you hear me okay? We're good? Yep, awesome. All right, I'll give it one more minute and we'll start. I think I have some good stuff for you. We'll see. We'll see what comes out of my mouth today.
How about them Cubs?
I know, the Cubs are pretty amazing. Thank you all. Good. Still kind of,
Tracy,
hello?
is it just me? I can hear you, but I can't. Oh, there you are, dear. I'll mute myself.
All right.
Couldn't
Yeah.
see you for a while.
Okay. Yeah, the Cubs, it was pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. The stories that are coming out of it, and it's just awesome. So yeah, I'm going back to Chicago this weekend. Very excited to go. I'm sure there'll be lots of craziness still hanging out there. So anyway, we are going to get started. We are on week 12. Can you believe that? Week 12 of our 90-day game plan. If you're just hopping on, this is being recorded. This may not be posted tonight. It may not be posted till tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up if you have people that you know aren't on tonight but want to watch it at some point and they're panicking because they don't see it tonight. It will probably show up sometime tomorrow. And then I'll leave it up till Thursday night, obviously, to account for that. So again, it'll only be available for 48 hours. And then we have only one more 90-day game plan Zoom left. Can you believe it? One. Because I'm going to recap kind of everything we've talked about. And, you know, I'm going to have to look at my notes because we've talked about a lot over 12 weeks. A lot of growth has happened over 12 weeks. A lot of maybe self-realization and actualization and all sorts of stuff has happened for you over the last 12 weeks. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to go over my notes and write down what I got out of these things for the last 3 months too. You know, we started with over 200 people on live and we're at, what is it? Not close to that. And I said about 20% would actually continue through the end. And it doesn't mean if you're not on right now that you aren't participating. I did challenge you to schedule this into your stuff, and we've had to I've had to make adjustments because life does happen. So, you know, I want you to not be discouraged because when you start people on isogenics, we have these dreams that, oh my gosh, they're going to be the one, they're going to be the one, they're going to be the one. And then 2-3 months later, you're like, where did they go? Where did they go? Where did they go? And those are just the numbers. That's, you know, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight too, is expectations and, you know, are you walking the walk that you talk? You know, people are going to do what you do, not necessarily what you say to do. So, you know, it's one of those things where you have to sometimes look yourself in the mirror. It's like, was I all in? Was I consistent? And that's with anything in your life. I'm not even just talking about isogenics, obviously. As you guys know, the last 12 weeks, we've kind of talked about more of life because, you know, we can learn all the skill sets and, you know, every skill set I learned as far as isogenics goes, I got most of it out of my back office and attending events. I'm just being really honest with you. And the rest came from hard work on me and digging through the layers. And so I know many of you keep showing up for the skill set. And as you know, that is not my strength, teaching skill sets, because I believe, this is just my belief, that unless you fix what's up here, you could have the skills of a ninja and you would struggle at this. So, you know, if you're looking for skill sets for me, you probably aren't going to get it. I'm just going to be really, really honest. I know what my strengths are and I know what they aren't. And my strengths are this part. So I will continue to do this. And if you want skills, then maybe I'm not your girl. That's totally okay too. Because you're going to have to dig deep. You're really going to have to dig deep. And I'm going to tell you, when you dig deep, the skills and the skill sets come so much easier. But so many people just want the easy part and want it to be easy. But if you don't kind of tackle what's underneath, the skill building gets a lot more difficult. So, we talked about the 10 habits of successful leadership from Eric Worre. I don't really have to rehash them. You've heard me go over them now for 11 weeks. Vision, belief, simplicity, positivity, hard work, focus, being unreasonable, promotion strategy, and immersion. And, Isagenix 90-day game plan for this week was about mindset, leadership, and follow-up. And ironically, those are really important things to me too. Not just in Isagenix, but in life. And, I talked last week. I know last week I got a lot of feedback that it was pretty deep, that it was super helpful. I've received lots of messages from many of you that thanked me for taking that pressure off of you. And here's the thing, I understand that what I said takes the pressure off of you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to be accountable for what you say you're going to do. I know there's lots of successful people that do this, and they're all amazing. They all have different strengths. And sometimes we hear somebody say something and we're like, cool, I'm going to try that. So we slap that up on the wall. And then you hear somebody else say it, that this is what they use to be successful. And they're like, cool, I'm going to try that. And you try all these different things, and it just gets really, really confusing. And not only are you confused, but the people that are watching you, considering possibly taking this journey with you, are completely confused too, because it's not congruent with who you are. So when I talk about, doing what's right for you, it doesn't mean to stop growing yourself ever. I will not let you off the hook for that. But as far as, how to do this business, or what to post and how to post and, all that stuff, this is a journey that, some of us came to this network marketing, Isagenix, doing a lot of work on ourselves. And many of you have never even touched personal development. So you got to give yourself a little bit of grace. My full-time job, the 6 months before Isagenix, was trying to figure this hot mess out. It really was. I was a train wreck, and I had to rebuild from ground zero, and I had to rebuild all my ways of thinking. And so what you see today is that rebuilding process. And sometimes, at 40 years old, and, I talked about it last week, some people say, well, that's just the way I am. That's how I've always done it. And that's fine. If it's working for you, keep doing that. But you obviously keep showing up because something isn't working the way that you want it to. Would you guys agree that that's probably true, at least in some area of your life, right? Nothing was working in my life when I was coming into this. Nothing, zero. Other than the relationship with my kids, I had zero going for me for the most part. And I had to completely start over. That meant my thinking. That meant my habits and patterns. That meant my network. That meant my relationships. That meant everything. And so, sometimes you're going to have to make those hard decisions. And we talked about it last week. You're going to have to evaluate what's working in your life and what's not. And if it's not, and it doesn't align with your vision, you're going to have to make some hard decisions and have some hard conversations. And some of those hard conversations may have to be with yourself, because you're going to have to own a lot of stuff. And that's the hardest part about this is, things may have happened to you, and we're going to get into that. But you've allowed that to define you. You've allowed it to control you, and you gave it the power. Nobody can do that unless you give it. And that's kind of the part where it's like, oh, I don't want to own that. I don't want to own that I gave somebody that power over me, but you did. I did for a long, long time. So we're going to get into that too tonight. Is that kind of like exciting, or are you nervous about it? Good? Yeah? No? Thumbs down? Cool. As far as skill set, we've unpacked a lot of baggage over the last 12 weeks. And, like I talked about, I didn't know what this would look like. I get people asking me all the time if they can follow me around all day. They want to know what Tracy does all day. And I don't let anybody do it. I've had about 4 people this week ask me that. I'm like, no. quite honestly, because I'm not a system kind of person. And I know we have systems and tools in place and they're amazing. And there are certain, other than the 14-day talk that I talk about, I really don't have much of a system because I've talked about this. How many are parents? Most of you, lots of parents. If you have more than one child, you know that a system never works if you have more than one child, because what works for one won't work for the next. What works for, especially if you have more than two, it's a hot mess. And so I've always really taken the time. I do have systems in place as far as the initial conversation, but everybody's why is different. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody's personality is different. Everybody's love language is different. All these things come into play. And so if you have a cookie cutter system, it doesn't always work and you get frustrated. People don't believe they can do this. And so the hard part about this is, and this is where a lot of people drop the ball, is they don't take the time to really get to know the people they're talking to, or they don't really care enough to know because they have their own agenda. Like, this is the person that's going to blow up my business center, so I really don't care what's going on with them. I just want them to do the work and do it fast, right? Have we all been guilty of that? Like, we have these expectations of somebody, yet we don't even know what baggage they're coming to the table with and how much of it they've unpacked or how much of it they refuse to unpack. And so you have to be willing to really go the distance with these people. And honestly, if somebody followed me around all day, at least for one day, it would never look the same. So it'd be pointless for somebody to do that, because I'm unpacking different bags every day, not just on myself, but within everybody that I come in contact with. Does that make any sense to you guys? Yeah? It doesn't mean I'm not consistent every day with doing the work, which means talking to people, right? I talk to people every single day. I show up every day, intentional, like I'm going to help bless people today. Every day it looks totally different. And so I can't even tell you what, I get a lot of people, so what does that look like for you? When you start peeling back the layers and repairing the dings on your heart, what does that look like to you? And quite honestly, every day it's different, because there's different dings that affect me different ways. There's different conversations I have with different people. So I don't want you to try and fit everything that I've taught you or told you into one pretty exact mold. You have to be able to adjust and shift and adjust and really care deeply about helping people. And I've said this over and over, if your intention, number one, is not to bless people, this probably isn't for you. It's okay to have goals and dreams, but at the root of everything, the root of you have to want to serve people. You have to, and it has to come before your own personal gain. Because if you have your personal gain, I know you have bills to pay. I know that there is stress. Trust me, I started this under the most insane pressure I've ever had in my life. I was a month away from not knowing how I was going to pay the rent. Really. So I get it. However, my intention was to bless people first, and the rest would come, and do the work and keep growing myself. I told you last week, my two visions that have stayed consistent from day one with this was grow myself and who can I help today? And those visions are number one. And you know what? The more that I do those two things, the rest on my pretty vision board come into play. And it gets a lot easier. So, keep your vision really focused and really coming from a place of service, and the rest will come easier. It's not promised to have a timeline that you want. I promise you that. It does not show up in the timeline you want. Sometimes things come a lot faster than you're ready for, in good ways. I've had lots of good things happen that I'm not mentally prepared for. And maybe you're sitting there like, Trace, that's a really nice freaking problem to have. Shut up. And I get that. But if any of you have ever owned a business, and I have, not just this business, but I owned another business before where we had such massive growth in such a short period of time, and I didn't have the manpower or the resources to manage it. And it was like all the wheels fell off the axle at once. So, taking this as you can and pacing yourself is really, really important. And like I said, all of you are on different journeys, so I can't tell you if you do this, this is what's going to happen in this time frame. But you have to have patience and you have to have faith. Remember John Wood and I talked about last week in the pyramid of success? The two things at the top were patience and faith. It's not going to show up in the time frame that you expect it to. If you want it to go faster, you're going to have to work harder on you. Not necessarily building your skill set, but at the root of it is you, okay? Let me see what we got going on here. Yes, good. All right, so when we talk about the skills, I've had a work ethic, and if you don't have a strong work ethic, that is a skill you need to build. I thank goodness this was instilled in me from day one. It was modeled for me almost to a fault. It's why I don't have an easy time having fun, because work ethic was everything. If you weren't working, you were lazy. That's what was taught to me. And it's because that was modeled for my dad. And I get it, and it's a great thing. I would rather have a strong work ethic than struggle with having fun. I'm learning how to have fun. So, rest assured, I'm learning some things, which is really, really cool. But at the root of who I am is a strong work ethic. And that's why when, everything falls apart, I can always pick myself back up. Although I could be a mess, I would still be working. And sometimes we use working, though, as a way to numb out. I've used my work ethic as a way to numb out and not feel and to be hardened. And when you are hardened, you can't be receptive to anything, not the bad and not the good. So being numb isn't always good, but you have to have a strong work ethic that tells you no matter what happens, I'm going to keep going. When I get knocked on my ass, I'm going to get back up. When things don't go the way that I have them, planned in my head, you know what? I'm going to do better tomorrow. And you have to have that strong work ethic. You have to be consistent. Those are probably two of the strongest skill sets that if you aren't strong in those areas that you have to build. That isn't necessarily learning you plus two, them plus two like a boss. I mean, that's important. But if you don't have the work ethic and the consistency to keep doing it, you could learn it once and then you'll never remember it again. Does that make sense? And the biggest skill set you have to have is that your word is gold. Your word is gold. You do what you say you're going to do long after the feeling wears off. The feeling of doing, the desire to do this call wore off about week 3. I'm just being really honest. It wore off week 3. However, my word is gold. And so here we are at week 12, still doing the do, still giving 100%. I'm not just going through the motions, as you guys, I'm sure from what I'm hearing, they get better and better every week. But my feeling of the excitement of this wore off at week 3. And I'm sure many of you got tired of this about week 3 or 4 too. Is that accurate? It's okay. Right? The more rejection we had, the more no's we had, the more people were, saying, really get your crap together and do something with your life. Or really going to do that. That weighs on you and wears on you. But here you all are still in the game, right? You're still honoring yourself and you're still showing up. So before you go and beat yourself up for things that haven't happened the way that you expected them to, give yourself a big bravo for showing up. Because your word meant something to you. Maybe it was just to honor the word you gave to me. You said you were going to show up every week. I don't know. But either way, how you do anything is how you do everything. And your word is the most important thing you have. And that doesn't cost you a darn thing. And you don't have to have a skill set to keep your word. You just have to be true to yourself and true to those that you talk to. And this will also help you determine what you say yes to. I mean, because my word is gold, when I used to say yes to everything, I would have bitterness and resentment tied to it. I would still do it. But you'd be sorry that you asked me to do it because I would have so much resentment in my heart that I would make everybody around me miserable for asking me, when in reality I was mad at myself for saying yes in the first place. So, if your word means everything, you're going to be very selective about what you say yes to. You're going to be really mindful about what you commit to. You're going to say no more often, and that does get easier, I promise. I was a yes girl. And it got me into some tough situations where then I'd have to go into hard conversations, which I hated confrontation. But when your word is everything, you're very, very, very mindful of what you commit to. And, when you do that, you honor yourself. How great is that? And you know what? You teach people how to treat you. So if you say yes, yes, yes to everything, and then the first time you say no, people are going to give you crap for it because you've trained them to expect that. And I'm not going to lie, when I started saying no in the beginning, people started to get mad at me. And it's okay, because we can at any moment decide to retrain people. Some people will walk out of your life, but they have mine, and that's okay too. But you have to decide what you want, what your vision is. Again, grow yourself, bless people. Grow yourself, bless people. And sometimes saying no had to happen in order for those two things to happen, right? You feeling me? No? You're bored? Okay, good. And you have to tell the truth. You have to tell the truth. I see a lot, and we're going to get into social media here in a little bit, because I'm super passionate about what's happening on social media. I know we so desperately want people to join us. However, we're not always telling the whole truth. We're talking about how great we feel and how everything's wonderful and we have this freedom, yet inside we are struggling. We are jamming ho-hos down our throat to fill an empty hole. We don't even know how we're going to pay bills. And we're telling them that this is easy to do, this network marketing. Yes, you just do it. You get a few people and you sit back and you wait for it to happen. And it's just not the case. This is hard work. Is it worth it? You betcha. You betcha. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And it's really, really important we tell the truth. I can tell you this, more people are likely to join you if you tell the truth about how hard it is. Because if you paint this picture that this is really easy, not just network marketing, but even the health journey. Isogenics is an amazing product line, and it will forever be in my blood. However, I still have food issues, and there's not enough ionics in the world to tame this crazy mind sometimes, but I have to work on that. So if we make it sound like it's super easy all the time, and it is a lot easier, trust me, you get somebody with a food issue that's struggling, and they're going to think they suck at life. And you know what? They're not going to tell you about it. They're just going to go silently away and self-loathe some more. And maybe that's even you. Maybe you've done that, right? And I know the faces on here, and I know some of you have done that from time to time. I've done it from time to time. So be truthful. It doesn't mean vent all your stuff. It doesn't mean unload all your crap so you can feel better. But when you're talking about what we do, and when you're talking to people about joining with you, just be mindful that you're telling the truth of what that really looks like. It's a journey well worth it. I committed to 3 years of hardcore work, and we'll see what happens. If at the end of 3 years it wasn't what I thought, then maybe I would entertain other things. And it isn't everything I thought. It's more. I got more growth out of it personally, but it is a lot harder than it's being portrayed sometimes. And when we talk about social media in a little bit, we're just seeing the highlight reel, and I get that. And a lot of people are afraid to tell the truth because, oh my gosh, that'll scare people off. No, the truth will only scare the right people off. The people that are willing to work hard will be intrigued by you being honest. I promise you that. Does it mean they're going to join you? No. Does it mean they're going to crush this? No. But does it mean they're going to pay attention to you a lot more because you are willing to be vulnerable and tell the truth in an industry that has a lot of stigma attached to it? Yeah, it will. And if you're in it a year, 2, 3 down the road, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she stayed in the game no matter how hard it was. She was talking about how hard it was, but yet here she is still plugging away, right? Now, if you're saying how easy it is and it's all wonderful, and the next thing you know, you go dark for like 3 months, people are looking at you like, well, I thought she said it was easy, or he said it was easy, and where'd they go? Guess it ain't so easy after all. So it's just best if you be truthful, and be humble, and be kind, and again, come from a place of service. I have never really posted anything, especially the last year and a half, anything that I didn't believe would bring some value. And even if it meant something funny, or if it meant, showing the relationship I have with my kids. And there have been some moments with my children that haven't been so glorious, and I've shared those too, because they are of value to people. If I just showed yay, happy mom with kids all day long, people would be like, they'd be like, okay, Trace, you're full of crap. Nobody has 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a solid relationship all the time without bumps and bruises. So again, does it mean you have to expose everything about your life on social media? No. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. But you just have to be congruent and consistent and be truthful, and come from a place of service. I know we've gone over that before. Okay, so I think a lot of what is holding a lot of us back, and we've talked about it especially the last 3 or 4 weeks, is the dings on the heart from the past. Yes, we're going here again, because this is where I'm getting lots of feedback that this has been super helpful, is the dings on the heart and the masks and the walls and all of that stuff. And you know, when I talked about repairing the dings and what that looked like, it was replacing the lies with truth, replacing the lies with truth. And a lot of times, you know, we have a ding on our heart from, let's say, a couple decades back, yet the story that we keep replaying in our head perpetuates that lie. Anybody relate? Yep. And so when we can psychologically understand why we do what we do, we can be insightful and understand, oh, that habit pattern shows up when this trigger happens. But if we don't go and replay the stories over and start replacing the lies with the real truth that you are beautiful and wonderfully made. You are a child of God, and you are amazing just as you are. Unless we go back and replay the tapes and fill it with truth and love, no matter how insightful you are, because trust me, I'm probably the most insightful person I know, and I was still struggling in this area, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, what is going on? I get it. I see the habits. I see the patterns. I know my triggers. But why? And it wasn't until I really started replaying the tapes differently and going back, forgiving myself for allowing myself to continue that lie for decades. I mean, come on. That doesn't serve you. And it certainly won't allow you to serve people. So you're going to have to be willing to do that hard work if you want to really, really help people at a deeper level. You can continue to do what you're doing, and trust me, I'm looking in the faces of many of you that I know very well, and you are blessing so many as you are today. I want you to know that. You're super, super special. And I know that many of you want to bless people on a bigger, deeper, grander level. Is that accurate? If it is, just raise your hand. Awesome. If that's the case, it's going to take you doing deeper work on yourself. I want to keep helping people at a bigger level than I already am. And so that's why I am continuing to do the work too. I didn't just get here and say, cool, I'm pretty good at this. Peace out, Boy Scout, I'm done. No, in fact, the work has gotten harder. How crazy is that? So for those of you thinking you're getting to a destination, I'm here to tell you, you're not. It's just one big long journey. And, you know, each day it reveals itself a little bit more if you're willing to receive it. That cool? So I'm going to give you some tips that I have found helpful about getting through that, because most of this is tied to rejection in our life. Would you agree? Or an emptiness that's missing. I like to call it, there's an empty hole, or we're deprived of something, or I've got my notes. I have this written down. Or we've been rejected. That's what it was. Rejection, emptiness, or deprivation. Does any of you like feel that? Any of you? That is usually where our habits and patterns come from. How do we react to those things? It's coming from one of those places. And my biggest struggle, because I had to really evaluate where I was at, you know, the rejection, I've gotten pretty far in most areas of my life that I don't let that feed into me. And the shiny objects really don't distract me. You know, I don't feel like I have that going on. And, but the emptiness, that one, you know, for those of you that with food issues, a lot of times, because when we use food to fill that empty hole, we believe it's not hurting anybody, right? You know, sometimes I've filled that empty hole with other things that were very destructive to people I loved. And so that's probably a big reason why I quit drinking. But every time that you fill an empty hole, even with food or unhealthy relationships or shopping or whatever that looks like for you, you are chipping away at who you are meant to be, and that hurts the people you love. And so every time I want to reach or numb for something to fill that empty part of me, I have to stop and really evaluate what that looks like and why I'm doing that, and really know that I am full. I have God on my shoulder right here. I know that I am good. I'm good. You know, and this is where social media comes into play, because we start scrolling through social media and all of a sudden it's everybody's highlight reel, and we're seeing people have success or whatever. And instead of being really, really happy for them, all of a sudden we turn inward and we think we're not enough. Right? Has that ever happened? It's natural. And unfortunately, you know, social media keeps feeding into it even more and more. And it's unfortunate, you know, we feel that emptiness. Everybody's got, you know, for me, I'm single. Everybody's got, you know, relationships and they're happy. And here I am on a Saturday night alone. And oh my gosh, you know, pizza sounds great. Pizza won't reject me. Pizza won't tell me I'm not good enough. Or, you know, before, you know, let's go to a bar, let's, you know, go do that, you know, and fill that empty spot with people that really don't matter to me. Right. But social media can do that if we give it that power. Same thing with, you know, the lust and the shiny objects and the deprivation. You know, you have plenty, you have everything you need right in here. You really, really do. And the more simple I've made my life, yes, I have a nice house and I have 4 beautiful walls, but I'm going to tell you a little story about deprivation. When I had to get my house foreclosed on 6.5 years ago, I had a beautiful, beautiful home, and I had to move into a house half the size, and I couldn't bring my family pets with me. I had 3 dogs at the time that I couldn't take with me, and it was devastating. So I had to really downsize not only my belongings, but my pets. I had to let them go too, and all 3 of them got beautiful homes that I still get updates on, which is amazing. But I've quickly realized that none of that stuff mattered. The pets, yes, they were my family, but all the other stuff really didn't matter, because all that mattered was what I had in front of me, and it was me and my kids and God. And it was plenty. And it was at that moment that I didn't realize that I was being groomed, that I didn't need all those things. All I really wanted was a roof over my head and enough money to be able to contribute on a massive level. You know, I used to like downplay the money because I would sabotage myself. And, you know, although money doesn't drive me, what I can do with it does. Contribution is big on my list. You know, it's never been about the stuff. Never has. It's been about the roof over my head, an education for my kids, whatever that looked like, and, you know, contribution. So, you know, the shiny objects, the deprivation, unfortunately on social media, we see people flashing their shiny objects all the time. And if that is something that you're lacking, you're going to be reaching for that even more. And I'm going to let you know, none of that stuff fills an empty hole. Trust me. Trust me. It doesn't. So you have to, you know, kind of self-evaluate that. And then rejection. And this is where most of you are replaying the lies. How many of you have rejection that you remember from the age of 10 or under? Keep your hands raised. I want to see you. Pretty much everybody that I see has a rejection from the age of 10 or under that they remember. And I would be a bet girl to believe that many of those rejections have created habits and patterns that you carry today, decades later. Right? I know mine are. And I have to keep them in check. So I'm going to give you some things to kind of think about. And again, I can tell you all this. It can all make perfect sense to you. You may already know this, but unless you go and replay the tapes again, and replace the lies with truth, you're going to have a pretty notebook full of great notes, However, you're probably not going to have the shift that you want. So although you may have aha moments when I kind of go through this stuff, you're going to have to do some work on you and replay some stuff. You cool with that? Yeah. Yes, food addiction is an acceptable society addiction, sadly. And you see how that's playing out in the world, unfortunately. It's really, really sad. So, I think I told the story about my dad and about the joke that he told the day I was born. Have I told that story before? Okay. And it was a total joke, and I get it, and I'm very insightful about it. But the day I was born, back then, the men were in the delivery room, and my dad always wanted a boy. He had the blue room painted. I was going to be a baseball player, which I turned out to be, which is okay. But the day I was born, the doctor came out and told my dad he had a daughter, and my dad said, fine, keep them both. Keep both me and my mom. I don't want either one. And it was a total joke. And for years and years and years and years, that joke was told, and a lot of laughter. I even laughed. However, how I translated that in my head was that I was never going to be enough. And so my perfectionism kicked in. That was my very first rejection the day I was born. And it wasn't meant that way. And trust me, I know that logically. But the ding on the heart from that rejection stuck. And my perfectionism went on for about 40 years, right? And you've heard me talk about perfectionism being the biggest form of self-abuse, right? Because you're never going to measure up. You're just going to keep bashing yourself over the head. You're going to keep sabotaging yourself because you don't believe you're good enough anyway, right? Or you're going to sabotage yourself so you can control a situation that you know is going to go to crap anyway. Is that ringing a bell to anybody, right? But I'm going to tell you, one incident doesn't have to dictate your future. It really, really doesn't. So write that one down. It doesn't. That one comment I allowed to dictate a lot of my future. And it was innocent and it was funny at the time. And this again is why we have to be very, very mindful of what we say to our kids. And, I did have that conversation with my dad about many things, about how the delivery came across. And, I know his heart never was any of those things he told me it wasn't. I know that I was probably the greatest thing he ever had in his life. And I know that. And I do know that. But the ding was already there. So I've hammered out that ding, and it no longer affects me that way anymore. But I had to replay that tape over and over, the truth. I'm perfect just the way I am. I'm beautiful. I'm an amazing woman, not a boy. And I'm okay with that, right? So, it doesn't have to project what your failures are going to be in the future. Rejection, it enables you. It doesn't have to label you, okay? I labeled myself as a reject, not just from that experience, but many, many other experiences. Because I was a perfectionist, nobody was going to measure up, so I was constantly rejected, right? I had these unrealistic expectations of everything and everybody in my life. So no kidding, I was rejected over and over and over again, and I labeled myself as not good enough. But you have the choice. That's the good news. And the minute I took power back and started making those decisions, things got a lot easier. My expectations lowered, not of other people. My expectations of how I react to things went up because I expect high quality reactions from myself, which is all I have control of. But my expectations of others changed. Doesn't mean I allowed less quality things in my life. It's just I didn't have to have people live up to this expectation before I would cut them out of my life. I had this habit of having relationships in my life, things in my life, and if it didn't live up, boom, they were out. Boom, out. Boom, out. And I left a trail behind me. Anybody else do that? Or have done that? Yeah. It doesn't serve you. And it doesn't label you. And you have the power. This one was hard. You know, when you've had your heart broken, whatever that looks like, it could be this business, it could be a relationship, it could be from your children, it could be whatever. You know, sometimes we'll say, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. And yes, that's easy to say, not always easy to process. You know, and right when I was starting Isagenix, I probably had the biggest heartache of my life happen. And, you know, I had matured enough and had worked on myself to understand that that didn't define me. I was not going to slip back into old habits and patterns. And, you know, I knew that it was making room for something bigger and better to come in. And quite honestly, had that heartbreak not happened, the chances of me sticking with what I was doing in Isagenix probably would have slimmed down, because that person was not comfortable with what I was doing. I'm just being really honest. I was already dimming my light to appease that person. So had I not had that heartbreak, I didn't love it the way it happened. Still don't, 3.5 years later. However, it made room for many bigger blessings to come in, because I've worked on myself and have the maturity and the wisdom through that work. I could say, okay, God, what blessing is coming in? Sometimes we have to, you know, I'm very good with dates and numbers as well. So like I can remember specifically, like when I'm pulling up my time hopper, what happened on this day in Facebook, I already know what it's going to say, because I have this weird memory when it comes to dates. But this is also a blessing too, because I can always remember when something bad happened. And it's interesting with the time hop and what happens now. It's like, boom, see, I saw what happened on this date, and look at 3-4 years later, the blessing that showed up on this very date. And had that not happened, this doesn't happen. So you have to allow, when heartbreak happens or things don't turn out the way you want, to be mindful to accept that maybe something bigger is coming. A bigger blessing is coming in place of that. And I'm here to tell you, they keep showing up. Every time my heart gets broken a little bit, you can't control your heart from getting broken. Trust me, I've tried. I've tried to isolate myself in a little bubble where it won't happen, and it continues to happen. So you might as well just go out and live life without the bubble. Okay? But you need to know, every time a little heartbreak happens, a bigger blessing is coming, as long as you can move through it and not let that define you. You hearing me? Cool? And you know, you're probably like, why are we talking about this? This is supposed to be a 90-day game plan. This stuff is affecting how you do your business. I'm telling you right now. So I'm just going to keep unpacking this stuff, because I know this is affecting your Isagenix business. This might be affecting your relationships, your parenting, whatever, your workplace. I don't know, but I bet it's helping somebody. Is it helping any of you yet? Cool. I got a lot more for you. Sometimes it's God's way of protecting you. I hate that. I really do. Again, 3.5 years ago, when my heart got stomped on, I knew that it was God's way of protecting me. I know with everything I know. And even that person that walked out said it was his way of protecting me too. And it didn't feel good. It felt awful. It felt like the rejections of the past. However, again, because of the work I do on me, I was able to see, okay, this still hurts. It's why I'm transparent to the core. It's why I have not dated in 3.5 years. Still. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm continuing to heal and learn. Okay? And I have to leave my house once in a while to date. So there's that. Okay? But don't focus on the wreckage. You know, look at it as falling into place, things falling into place. Because there was a lot of wreckage left when that person left my life. A lot of it. I had bills that I didn't expect. I had a house to take care of that was a 2-partner house, and all of a sudden it was one. And I could have very easily focused on the wreckage. Instead, I had a brand new Isagenix business, and instead I was focusing on what was about to fall into place. But if you're so focused on the ruin and the mess, you're going to miss the blessing. All right? So can we agree that everything will fall into place? You know, be careful what you wish for. It doesn't always show up as you expect it. But you stay the course and you stay in the game. What is more important than why? And this if you get nothing else from me tonight, this is probably key. How many of you would have horrible things happen? Why me? Why me? Why me? Why me? Why is this happening? Why? And you're whying yourself to death. If you've done this, just give me a little pop up. I did it for a long, long time. You know, I was so focused on that. And you know what? Whatever you focus on, you find. So if you keep like programming yourself, why is this happening? Guess what's going to keep happening? That same crap. Right? And you wonder why, you know, drama keeps following you. Maybe because you're a little bit of drama. I'm just speaking from experience, people. I'm not calling anybody out, but I am just speaking from experience. I used to say I'm not drama, but sure enough, it kept following me because I would continuously, sorry, I don't know why that happened, but I would continuously keep asking myself, why me, instead of saying what? You know, so pride and insecurity, if you're filled with pride and insecurity, the whys probably come up a lot more in your verbiage. So if that's coming up for you, you're going to have to be like, oh, shoot. You're going to have to flip that mirror on yourself and be like, okay, I'm at a big old place of insecurity right now. And I'm worried about what people think about me, right? Instead, I would say the last, especially 3 years, I have said, okay, what am I going to learn from this? Every time something undesirable happens, because I don't want to say something bad, because everything can be a blessing, even the hard stuff. So every challenge I face now, and especially when it shows up in a package I'm not real happy with, and that happens, I always say, always, and this is God's honest truth, I always say, what will I learn from this? How will this grow me? How will this experience be used to help me bless people? And that comes from maturity, humility, and wisdom. So you can go from a why person to a what person, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. So if you get nothing else from me, this is probably the key. So every time you say why, like snap yourself, like, oh, shoot, there's that little insecurity popping up again. Oh, there's pride again, right? But as you condition yourself, and this takes practice, you guys. I didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm just going to start saying, what's this going to do for me? How am I going to bless people with this? No, it took practice. It took practice. It took falling on my ass a lot. But you know what? I kept getting back up and doing better next time. How can I do this better next time? What can I do better next time? So when you do fall on yourself and you why yourself to death, you can immediately switch it right now and say, what am I going to do tomorrow that will be better than today? Right? Cool? This is probably the most powerful thing. This is wisdom. This is growth. This is maturity. This is humility. Because I'm here to tell you, no matter how many stars and circles you have in your name, no matter how many dollars you have in your bank account, if you are whining yourself to death, you're still filled with insecurity and pride. And you're not growing. And really, you're not living a fulfilled life. Because there are a lot of people with millions of dollars that are so unfulfilled, they're miserable. And I know many people that have, on paper, nothing, and they are the most fulfilled, soulful human beings. Because they never ask why. You get it? I mean, it's important to understand why we do what we do. I mean, that's part of unpacking the baggage and repairing the dings. But playing yourself as a victim, even when things happen that aren't your fault, that you didn't ask for. I mean, there are some people that have suffered some horrible things in their life that absolutely they had zero control over. However, instead of saying, why me, those people today are saying, how will this experience help me help people? What can I learn from this to help me move forward in my life? You feeling me? I'm open. Okay. Okay, so with social media, I like to call it ick on the internet. There's so much ick on the internet, especially right now. I'm seeing people that loved each other attack each other over who they're voting for. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Or people that are attacking each other because they've chosen a profession that has a stigma attached to it. And there's a lot of ick on the internet. And maybe even you've had something undesirable happen and you're using the internet as a journal and you're unloading it. Please don't. I think it's okay to be transparent once you've worked through it. And using the internet like a journal is really, really bad. And unfortunately, the millennials with Twitter and everything, it's like a constant journal feed. And this is the one area with my own children that I've always said, really think hard before you post anything. Find a really good friend or a confidant or even a parent or somebody or a counselor, somebody in your life that you can bounce things off of before you pop them on Facebook and hit post, or before you send a text message and hit send. There's so much power in the pause. I talk about the pause all the time. There's so much strength in the pause, and in the pause, I had an experience today that I had to pause like nobody's business, and holy moly, thank goodness for that wisdom, because I probably would have had to do a lot of damage control. So before you take to the internet, be still. Be still. There are times I have that in my office here. Be still, because sometimes not everything needs a reaction right now. Be still. You don't always have to keep moving. All right. And for somebody like me that has a work ethic that always has to be cranking, there were moments when I should have just been still and enjoyed and processed. But because I needed to always be doing, that meant I was reacting. And it was chaos. And I ended up doing more damage control than being more productive. You feeling me? So please be real mindful about everything you put on the internet. You can't take it away. And, don't have today's reaction be tomorrow's regret, really. Time hop, again, because I know dates and stuff, I know when I'm going to kind of put my hand to my head and be like, oh my goodness. Thank goodness for personal development, because there's lots on the internet that I regret. I've grown from it. I've used it. Instead of saying, why did I do that? I said, well, what did I learn from that? So avoid it. If you're in a bad spot, shut down the internet for a while. And especially this next week, I strongly suggest it. Or if you've got people in your newsfeed that are spewing hate, unfollow them. I don't care if they're family. It's just not good. It's not good. And, I've even seen a lot of the election stuff, and I know where I'm positioned in it. And I'm seeing people just spew hate, even that are aligned with where I'm going with the election. And they're spewing such hate. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. I can't even deal. And, that stuff duplicates, sadly. So again, I won't harp on that one too much longer. And if you're going through something, I know I've been very vulnerable and transparent on social media. However, before I've revealed the transparency, I've taken a lot of private time to heal. Take that in for a second. When you're going through stuff, it doesn't mean you go dark. It doesn't mean you go dark and isolate and numb out. But sometimes you do need some private time to heal. Does that make sense, or am I confusing you? Does it make sense? Because there's a difference between being transparent once you've healed or healing through it, and it's not an unhealthy thing to disclose, or if it's going to bless somebody, or if your experience is going to help somebody. But if it's raw and you're in the heat of it, let yourself privately heal from that or work through it. Cool? Cool. All right. There's a lot more to you than the failures you've had. And some of you know my story. Maybe some of you don't. The 5 years before Isogenics, I had the biggest losing streak of my life. I had a divorce. I had to foreclose my family home. You heard me. I had to give up my family pets. Bankruptcy. I had to shut down a business I had invested in for 10 years. I had failed relationships. I had alcoholism, you name it. None of those failures really said who I am. There was way more to me than each failure I've had. So if you've had stuff happen in your life that are less than desirable, there's way more to you than that. And there were some people that was enough for them to leave my life, and that's totally okay. We've talked about the poem Season, Reason, Lifetime before. But there's a lot more to you than your failures. And quite honestly, your failures are what build your character. They're what grow you into who all those things I just rattled off have sculpted me into the amazing person I am today. Every single one of them. How do I define going dark? Going dark doesn't necessarily mean on social media. I've gone dark in my life where I can be on social media and to the public and to all the people that see me on Facebook, it can look like I'm totally engaged and present in life, but in real life, I am dark, hiding behind walls and a computer screen. So what I mean by going dark isn't necessarily social media related. You need to stay engaged in life even when it's uncomfortable, even when you want to numb out. So I mean going dark in life. Because what we see on social media isn't a true depiction of really what's happening day in and day out. Yes, you see some of the really cool stuff and some of the hard stuff about my life on social media, but there's way more to me. And I've gone way dark, even though I'm present on social media. How about that for some transparency? And some of you are doing that. You are not allowed to go dark on life. Okay? And I'm saying that as much for me as I am for you. We are not allowed to go dark on life, okay? You can go dark on social media and have such a soulful-filled, light-filled life. But social media may not know about it, and that's totally okay. There are people that are very present on social media, but they're going dark. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question about going dark? Yeah? Cool. Awesome. Okay, this one's a good one. So this will help you when you've had people walk out of your life or people that continue to be there for you and you're like, how the heck are you still in my life? Because, I had 40 years of damage and wreckage that I caused. And there are some people that left my life but have come back. And I'm like scratching my head sometimes, like, how did that happen? And quite honestly, what somebody sees as a liability, somebody else can see as an asset, right? There are a lot of people that think my vulnerability and my transparency is so amazing and it is so helpful to them, right? How many of you have told me that? I know I can see you. Many of you have said, thank you for being transparent and vulnerable. It's given me courage. It's given me permission to do it. And you know what? Thank you. But there's an equal amount of people out there that find what I do a liability. And that's totally okay. Because you know what? It's totally okay. There are some people in their life that they don't find that as an asset. They think vulnerability is weak. And so of course they're not going to see that as an asset. And you know what? That's totally okay. They're on their journey. I'm on mine. It's totally fine. And if I listened to all those people that thought my vulnerability was a liability, all you people that think it's an asset would be missing out on it. So I have to ask you, where in your life have you allowed somebody saying what you are is a liability cut you off from blessing people with your asset that somebody else would find an asset? Guilty. I've been guilty of that in the past. Don't let one person's opinion control everything. If your intention is to help people and bless people, then good, keep going. If your intention is to grow yourself and to put your head on the pillow without any regret, to show up in the world every day exactly how you are on social media, then keep doing it. And the people that find the things in you that are a liability, you know what? Maybe they're part of the story's over. Maybe they don't want to work on the same things you do. And you know what? That's what makes the world beautiful. There's all different shapes and sizes and colors, and we're all different. If we were all the same, this would be pretty darn boring, right? But don't let somebody telling you what you are as a liability keep you from blessing people with what somebody else would find an asset. Can we agree to that? There's about 40,000 of you that wouldn't be here if I allowed that to control me. Can you imagine? You know, think about the people that may have not had the beautiful blessing of who you are because you were being controlled. You gave the power to somebody else that said what you were is a liability. So own that. And it's uncomfortable. Don't be consumed by it. And you know, when I hear, you know, do I get all snappy when somebody calls me out on stuff that some people find an asset? No. I take it into perspective. I try to like see it from their point of view, and I've adjusted some things that I'm like, they have a point. They have a point. And maybe I can still be that, however, shift some certain things. It doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and they're wrong. It doesn't mean any of that. But I keep it all in perspective. I keep it, I find out kind of, I do a little analyzation, maybe where they're at in their journey. Doesn't mean I'm judging them, but be willing to grow from that feedback too. Doesn't mean you have to, you know, shift according to it. But I've learned a lot from those people that said I was a liability. And so I thank them. And maybe I've shifted in even further in the other direction because of that. Because usually when you're making some waves, it usually means you're doing something right. And I'm telling you right now, the devil wants you pulled as far away from him. The devil wants you pulled as far away from God as possible. So the more waves I'm making, I know I'm getting closer and closer and closer to what I'm supposed to be. All right? So stop letting that consume you. Okay, short-term setbacks are not permanent. You heard my list? It was 5 years. That wasn't real short term. It felt like 800 years, all that stuff. But it was just a setup. It was a setup for something much bigger, clearly. And, you know, I know that some of you have had setbacks even in this journey, in this isogenics journey, in your health journey, in your relationships, whatever, and it paralyzes you. And you smack a label on yourself. Well, I'm just not lovable. I've slapped that one on myself. I've had people leave my life, men especially, over and over and over again. I must not be lovable. Like that was the label I slapped on myself. And you know what? Instead, they just weren't strong enough to handle this broad. That's all. You know, I mean, but those were all setups. All those experiences, all those failures I had in business, all those failures I had as a kid, all the failures I had because I self-sabotaged myself were all setups to grow me. Okay? Oops. I don't know if that's me or you, but, and you know, those don't have to define you. You let those experiences refine you. All those things that I told you about, all those little things, you know, the divorce, you want to talk about refinement? Talk about, you know, your picture perfect world come crashing down on you. Now, I could have let that define me, and I did for a little while. But instead, I used that experience to really let God sculpt and mold me and refine me into who I am today. And the next relationship I got in was better. And then when that fell apart, I let it refine me some more. And I keep getting better and better and better because I don't let it just keep me there. All right? So you don't have to let setbacks like hold you back. This one's the hardest one. Don't let heartbreak destroy you. Don't let it destroy you. It's building you. There's been more heartache in my life than I like talking about sometimes. And because I do share it pretty openly, people are like, holy moly, like you've been through a lot. And if you can do it, I can do it. And that's true. And, you know, there was a defining moment about 4 years ago where I almost let it take me completely out. Being pretty honest, I was like, I can't handle any more heartbreak. I just can't. I can't. And by the grace of God, grace entered, and I saw hope, and I knew that He was building me for something much more than what had happened in my life. And instead of trying to control everything around me and be perfect on the exterior for everybody else to see, I just kind of let it go and turned it over. And slowly but surely, all those heartbreaks started to really, the building process had been going while I was trying to cover it up with all this fluff. And when I finally revealed it and said, I give, you've got it, Grace stepped in, and all those building blocks really started to stack up on each other and give me more strength. And, you know, I have this tattoo. It says, oh, look at all these bruises I have. I did this rugged maniac, Libby. I saw you on here. I've got bruises everywhere. But it says grace always wins, and it does. But you have to allow it to enter in. And it can't enter in if you keep feeding yourself with lies. Okay? You got it? So we talked about being empty and being deprived and being rejected. And, you know, out of those three things, I'm sure for all of you, like all three of those things have affected you in this journey, in this isogenics journey. And, you know, you have to evaluate where you're at on those things. And the big list I kind of just went through, I'm sure, like, as I was going through it and writing it down and journaling about it and really holding the mirror up to myself, and I had to, like, okay, gosh, I still have a lot of work to do. And it doesn't mean I'm going to beat myself up because I've made mistakes. It doesn't mean I'm going to, you know, go eat some cake and try and fill that gap. I've done that before. It never works. And I'm going to tell you something. Because you guys are learning more about yourself, it makes it harder and harder and harder to do your old habits and patterns, because when you know better, you have to do better. It was so much easier when I was oblivious to the train wreck that I was, because I could mindlessly do things and it wouldn't even affect me. And people could even call me out on it because I was ignorant to it. I was like, whatever, you're just ignorant. But because I know better, I can't go back and do those things and have it like food for me, because food is probably my biggest drug. And for some of you, it's all this other stuff, whatever. But that I don't even find any kind of enjoyment or pleasure out of that anymore, because I know better now, and I know that's exactly what I'm doing when I do that kind of thing. That's a good thing. That the fact that it doesn't produce any kind of joy or anything, because it's God's way of saying, you're trying to fill a hole here that's unfillable with that. You need to fill it with me, right? And whatever your faith is, and, you know, some of you, I don't know where you're at with that, but I'm telling you right now, find something that's much bigger than yourself to believe in. Mine is God. It will be and always will be. But, you know, that emptiness, that for me, write it down, empty, deprived, rejection. You know, which one of them probably stings more than the others. And I would say, instead of trying to tackle all of it at once, pick one and work hard on that. Work hard on that for now. So when you're triggered by those kind of things, it's not affecting you, because you are beautiful, and you are wonderful, and you are magnificent, and you have so many gifts to give this world. And it doesn't look like me, and it doesn't look like that person or that person or that person or that person. That's perfect. It is you. You know, and when it comes to this business, I see so many of us, and when I was first trying to figure out what network marketing was, and because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And honestly, I still don't, but I kept going with my gut to be human first. You know, you hear lots of strategy. And I mean, one of the top 10 things in, you know, effective habits of leadership is strategy. The strategy is to be the most human person you can be, to be the most real, be okay with you, to go back and repair the dings. If I confused a lot of you tonight, I'm seeing it in your faces that maybe I'm confusing you, or you're like, I don't even know where she's going with this. And although this is a 90-day game plan for isogenics, you know, we could talk about U+2. We could talk about connecting. I could even tell you what might work on social media. But at the root of it, if you still have these empty holes that you're trying to fill with things that won't fill it, if you still feel like you are chasing shiny objects, and if you are still replaying the rejection hurts, I mean, everybody raise their hand. You still remember a rejection from when you were under 10 years old. All of you did. All that other stuff won't matter if we can't get, you got to unpack this. You can build an isogenics business, but it will be building it like a house of cards. You ever do a card house when you were a kid? You know, take this was long before they had, you know, iPads and all that crap. And, you know, what we did for fun was build card houses. And, you know, we could stack them super, super high, I can remember we had 4 decks of cards high. And you know what happened? One flick and it all came crumbling down. So yeah, you can build a strong isogenics business with some really good skills and what somebody's told you to do. But it could be a house of cards, because if your foundation isn't rock solid, and this stuff that I'm talking to you about is how you build your foundation. If you don't have your foundation rock solid, it doesn't matter how high the house you build. If it's on a foundation of sand, it's all going to come down. If it's built like a house of cards, it's all going to come crashing down, right? You feeling me? So let's get the foundation right first. And I promise you this. I can't promise you you're going to explode your isogenics business. I can't. But I can tell you this. If you build your foundation rock solid, you will have so much more joy in your life, even when challenges arise. You will have so much more fulfillment in your life, even when people disappear, and even when you look around and there's nobody but you. You'll find joy in the moments that you are alone, and it won't feel lonely. There'll be a difference between alone and lonely. But you gotta have that foundation first, because I'm gonna tell you, I have a rock solid foundation. I do. And if it wasn't, those things that I've talked about, especially the empty one, the lonely part, that would have rattled me in ways that I don't know if I could recover from. And many of you have built your foundation on sand, where one thing happens and it all comes tumbling back down. And I built my life on like a house of cards for a long, long time, and it doesn't work, because that's when we build ourselves up, boom, it's like self-sabotage. Sabotage, those of you that are self-sabotagers, you're masters at building houses of cards, right? You can build that sucker way up, right? And then boop, flick, all down, right? So let's, even if our house is only two stories high, if our tree is 2 stories high and that foundation is rock solid, that's way better than a tree or a building that's this high on sand. So that is why, you know, about 2 weeks into this, 3 weeks into this, I decided that, you know what, I could teach skill set all day long. And honestly, that's probably why a lot of people left this call a long time ago, because they just want the easy way. Give me the goods. Tell me what to do so I can be successful. And that's why I don't let people follow me, because I do this work, the foundation work, long before any skills come into play every day. And there are most of my days are spent making sure that foundation stays solid. Because there are many houses that have had strong foundation before, and then all of a sudden you pull back the carpet and there's a big crack in it. And you know, I still have cracks in my foundation. It's still solid, but the cracks are okay. The cracks are okay. We're just going to keep repairing it and fixing it and making it more solid than last time. But you have to be willing to lift the carpet up and take a look, okay? And see what's there and be really honest. And if it's sand, that's okay. You can build on that. You can build on that. Make it concrete. Make it concrete. And until you're willing to do that, I wish I could tell you that you could build a huge successful business, and you might. If you talk to enough people, it's a game of numbers, really. But chances are, if any of this stuff that I've talked about tonight are affecting you, you probably are afraid to have conversations because of fear of rejection. So you're probably not having enough conversations to build a really successful business, to be honest with you. Those that still struggle in this, that have super successful businesses, just keep talking. Next, they probably don't have many solid relationships in their life if they're not solid. So don't let the shiny, pretty things on social media tell a different story than what's really happening. Don't let it think that you're not enough. Don't let it think that you have to chase something that they have so that you'll feel less empty. And don't let the rejections of the past dictate you and the failures own you. Don't. The only thing that you have to be accountable for is your reactions, and you today saying, I'm done doing that. I don't care how old you are. It took me 4 decades to figure it out. And I very easily could have said, well, that's who I am. That's what I've always done. And continued on. And I would just keep building the cards, and then boom, keep building the cards, boom. And you know what? That's exhausting. That's just exhausting. So I encourage you to, take a deep look. We talked about, mindset, leadership, and that's leadership. I mean, I know that we have a solid leadership foundation within our organization because I'm working on the foundation of me every day. And many of you have been watching. And here's the thing, you got to be hungry for this. And I don't mean hungry for the money and success that comes from building a successful network marketing business. You got to be hungry to serve. You got to be hungry to make humanity better. You got to be hungry to be the best version of you every day. And you need to be hungry enough to know that you're never going to get there. You aren't. It's a work in progress every single day. And, a lot of that stems from your why. And maybe your why over the last 12 weeks has completely evolved as we've unpacked more layers. And as we've gone back and repaired some dings in our hearts, maybe your why has completely changed. Mine has a little bit. And, a lot of us come to events which are amazing for information or inspiration. Would you agree? Many of you have been to dozens of events, and maybe you come because you're inspired and you get lots of information, right? I don't want to be, for you, inspirational entertainment, because transformation can't happen unless you apply what you're learning. Unless you apply what inspired you, and I'm not even talking about me, but whatever inspires you. If you took massive notes over the last 12 weeks, yet you haven't applied anything of that inspired you, you will never have the transformation you want, ever. You'll just have a notebook filled with notes. And most often, if you actually opened up that notebook again and looked at it and looked at all that information and inspiration and know that you haven't applied any of it, you're going to have that vicious circle of beating yourself up over again. So can we make an agreement that it's okay to be inspired and informed and to keep coming? But every week, this is why I've only kept the calls up for 48 hours, because I wanted to force action. Because some people are addicted to inspiration. Some people are addicted to information. So they don't have to work on what's really important, and that's you. So that's why I've kept them at 48 hours, because I want to have this urgency to listen and then not dwell on what I said, but then to take what you learned, usually what sticks with you first or second or third, if you've listened to it more than once in that 48-hour period, and then go apply it. Go apply it. I appreciate all the wonderful things you say to me and that I've helped you and inspired you. But if you're still stuck where you were 12 weeks ago, I have failed you. My goal is to help you transform, whatever that looks like for you. It may not even be your isogenics business, because I really don't care about that. I told you before, I want to help you grow as a person, because that will enhance every aspect of your life. Okay? Can we agree to do that? Please. Information is good, inspiration is good, but application is a key to your transformation. And I see many of you showing up every week. Tell me you're inspired. Tell me you learned a lot, and then you do the same thing over and over again. You don't apply any of it. And again, I am no expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I have just practiced this over and over again. I mean, that's why a lot of people sit and watch like things like The Biggest Loser or you know, all those shows that there aren't many left that are good, but the ones that really inspire you. We sit there and then we're inspired by it. And maybe we'll go to the gym, or maybe, you know, we'll take action for a day, but we really don't apply what we learned from that. You haven't applied what you've learned from my life lessons that I've shared with you. You aren't applying what you've learned from your own life lessons that you've unpacked. And so that's why your transformation isn't moving where you want it to, whatever that looks like, right? Does that make sense? This was a huge aha moment for me because, you know, I like personal development a lot. I've been guilty of taking really good notes when I've taken part in some really good things. And then now I'm getting better about it. I'll open it a week later and see if I applied even just one nugget at all in my life that I was so inspired by a week ago. And if I don't, then no wonder I'm not getting where I want to go with a certain area of my life. So I encourage you, if you've taken notes over the 12 weeks, I want you to go back. And even if it's only one nugget, I want to hear about the one nugget you've applied without fail. Not just once, not just the week after I talked about it, but consistently. Application is the key to your transformation. Okay? All right, we got 8 minutes left, so I'm going to open it up. If you have any questions, we have one more Zoom, and I'm going to bring it home next week. It is going to be inspired in a way. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be good. So you're going to want to show up next Monday. Again, this one will probably be uploaded tomorrow, and it will be available till Thursday night. And I sure appreciate all 56 of you that are live on tonight. I know there is a lot going on in the world that probably could have distracted you. I'm glad that I have this to distract me instead of what's really out there. But I'm going to open this up. If you have a question or anything, we'll let it go for 7 minutes. Please be respectful of everybody. If you want to unmute yourself, if you have a question, go for it. And if you got nothing, we can go. Just reading some of your notes here. Did I shell shock you? Oh,
No, Tracy, I was waiting. I was waiting to see if anyone else was jumping in first before I spoke. It's Margaret.
I know. Hi, Margaret.
And I have to say that, yes, I have been applying the personal development and the working on myself and analyzing exactly what it is I want moving forward.
So what's one nugget that you've applied? What's one nugget you've applied that you've learned over the last 12 weeks consistently? Just one.
I've made sure I'm reading daily, both devotional and development. I would say I've done both, not just one or the other. Just little, not necessarily a lot, just little bits. You don't have to do it for hours on end, just little bits.
A little tip for that, because that's something that I've really consistently been doing. For those of you that do read, I encourage you, before your feet hit the floor, regardless of what your faith is, like I usually start my day before I even get out of bed, and I thank God for where I am today. I thank him for protecting me. I pick up one of my devotionals or one of my books or the Bible even, and I will be there. And, you know, you want to start your day in that. And for God's sakes, please don't watch TV before you go to bed or even scroll through Facebook before you go to bed. Please read something positive. Put something positive in your head before you go to bed. So that's a good one, Margaret. That's a good one.
Oh, by the way, I met Rhonda, and I do not know, did not get Rhonda's last name, but she's the one who she was saying it took her 10 years of personal development before she could grow her business at all. And now at 14 years, she's rocking it.
Rhonda Collier?
Possibly.
Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing. She's amazing.
So
Awesome.
UIA rocked and Kathy went with me. So I'll let somebody else have it. Thanks so much, Tracy.
Anytime. Anybody else got something?
I do.
Oh, hi, Irene.
Hi.
Sweetheart.
Hi. I've learned several things in the 12 weeks, but I think one of the main things that I feel like I have put into place is gratitude mostly, and starting every single day with gratitude. And then I really feel that I have become much more congruent and consistent in everything that I do. And I've become quite transparent too, but in a very honest and in an honest way. I've had many people compliment me on how genuine I am being, and I feel that way too because I'm passionate about it too. But I've learned that through this.
You have absolutely, like, watching you for sure. Everything that you are saying is absolutely spot on. You are transforming before our very eyes, to be honest with you, because you are applying what inspired you. You know, you told me personally certain things inspired you, and then you actually applied that, and look at the transformation. Not only are you having, but it is trickling into every area of your life, and it's beautiful. And you are a perfect example of, you know, and you're not perfect. None of us are. You know, we fall off and we get back up, but you are definitely somebody that is applying what inspires you and any information that you feel moved. So I'm so proud of you. I really, really, you're amazing. You inspire me. You're
Thank you.
making me apply some things too. So that's awesome. Great job.
Thank you.
If you have a question, unmute yourself.
This is, first of all, I just wanted to thank you. I'm not even on your team, and so I really wanted to thank you for opening this up. And I have been telling myself, you know, bless others, grow myself, help others, grow myself. That's become my mantra, and I wanted to thank you for that, Tracy, because that's been the thing that's really become the focus for me. Like everything else, yeah, the money, the people, the this, the that. Help others, grow myself. It's so clear. So thank you.
And so when you've done that, how have you seen that manifest in other areas of your life? Have things come easier to you because of those things, or is it still kind of messy, or, you know, or you stop the stinking thinking sometimes stops when you start, like, and that's huge. That's a breakthrough, right?
Well, life is always messy, you know, especially if you have kids, but just being able to cut through the noise more with priorities.
Good. That's awesome. Good. It is, when you make it that crystal clear, it does get a little easier to manage, right? And it doesn't feel as overwhelming.
That's right.
Right?
Oh, and I also wanted to thank you for the books. Was it The Carpenter and the Energy Bus? John something, I forget his last name now, but I've read the books over and over. I just don't remember the name of the author. And I want to thank you for that recommendation because I really like them.
Awesome. I'm going to tell you another recommendation right now. This one. I know a few of you are reading this. Holy moly. My
Uninvited.
Uninvited by Lisa. I don't know how to spell her last name, but it's very good. My son is reading this book, and it's so funny. I see, Connie. I know a few people are reading this. It's amazing. Also, The Gifts of Imperfection was the best book I've ever read next to this one. By Brene Brown. And honestly, Brene Brown is legit. The Gifts of Imperfection, I've got that one too, Connie, right here. Brene Brown actually wrote the foreword on this one. So, so awesome. Gift of Imperfection, especially when we're talking about rejection, and get that book today. I have that book, and it is, nice. The Gift of Imperfection was probably my biggest breakthrough book in the beginning. I was like, holy moly, when I was starting to unpeel the layers, and it kind of started to make sense. It gave me more insight to why I was the way I was. And I have so many notes. It looks like a school textbook or like a workbook because I have written so much in that. So, and I've given that book out a lot. So, all right, we have time for probably one more. So unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hey, Tracy.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
I got the dog barking here, hopefully. Just wanted to say, yeah, I mean, all of this has been, really helpful for me. A lot of it's made sense, total sense. Actually, a lot of it has been, God has been speaking to my heart. Before I even get on the call, it seems like everything has been kind of like funneling in the same things that you've been saying. So it's like God is making, I think, a big movement here. More than just, learning these different tactics, about business. I totally agree that, a lot of people need more than just those things that they need to hear. I mean, I totally believe that because, it just makes sense. So what you're doing here, I can totally understand it. And I agree with everything that you're doing. There's so many other things out there that people can follow. And I was just thinking that on my way home here from the gym, when you said in the beginning about, you can follow this person or follow that person. And you take all this in and you start to think, well, who am I now? Who am I? And you gotta, you have to figure out who you are and kind of go with, that.
And here's the thing, and I love that you said that, and I'm going to finish with this because I think it's really, really important. And, especially when, and this is for those of you that have kind of taken on the mantra that I have, like, okay, grow myself, help people, grow myself, help people. And because I grew myself so much that kind of got pushed to the back burner. So I was helping people so much. And trust me, that's amazing. But somewhere along the line, I felt disconnected. And, that's what I was talking about going dark. Even though I was present on social media and even in Strive and all of that, there was this disconnect. And so you have to have this healthy balance of growing yourself, not necessarily to grow your isogenics business, but to just grow yourself, and not for the public eye to see, but just to grow yourself so you can stay connected in life. And it's one thing to be whatever you are on social media. And for those of you that know me on social media and you meet me in person, I'm exactly the same. I mean, I really, really am. But there was this disconnect. So finding that healthy balance between growing yourself and helping people, because you don't want to be this codependent thing that, your identity is dictated by the number of people that you bless to. And it's a beautiful thing when you're blessing people, but again, there has to be the balance, has to be. And, again, I am no expert, not claiming to be. There are amazing, beautiful leaders in isogenics that I I respect. They're amazing. They're completely different from me. They do things differently than me, and they're amazing equally. And, you're all amazing. Everybody's amazing. And that's a very general term, but I know those of you that were at David Wood's event are laughing at me because amazing is something we probably shouldn't use, but whatever. It's what's on my heart right now. But finding the balance, and, if I quit growing myself, even though I've gotten pretty good at growing myself, and I'm just helping, you're going to have a disconnect. And even though it was a healthier pattern, it was still an old pattern of, not being balanced. So, keep growing yourself. At the same time, they work in tandem with each other. Because if you're heavy on this end and you're just growing yourself, and you're not serving people, you're not going to have the fulfillment in your heart. You really, really aren't. And if you're helping people constantly, and you're not growing yourself, you're going to feel a disconnect. So the goal is to have those two working in tandem with each other. It doesn't mean you grow yourself and you don't help people until you grow yourself. And it doesn't mean you just keep blessing people so you don't have to deal with yourself. The goal is to have those things kind of teeter like this, where they're almost equal all the time. And that honestly is what built my isogenics business from the beginning. It really, really did, because it was equal parts Tracy growing, equal parts blessing people. And when people want to know my secret sauce, that was the secret sauce. And where I started to feel this disconnect, especially in the last 8 months or so, was it was constant serving without me growing. And if you're not growing, what are we doing? Dying. And I felt like that. And I was going dark in life. And so I don't want that for any of you guys. So we're going to make the commitment to keep those things balanced, right? And if we teeter off one way, you know what? We just readjust. We can just readjust. And you know what? You at any moment can readjust and shift. For those of you that watched my Facebook Live, I think it was a week or two ago, about the shift, I mean, that's what it's all about, you guys. It is. It's what it's all about, is finding the balance, and at any moment saying no, readjust, shift. And it's great. And you know what? Not everybody's going to like it, but it's okay. It's okay. I like it. So I'm going to let you go. We're 6 minutes past. So same time, same place next week. It's going to be good. We're going to recap our 90-day game plan and go into the holidays and a new year. Hopefully filled back up and not beating ourselves up. We're not focusing on, maybe things we didn't keep our promises to. We're just going to shift and readjust. Okay. That's what next week's going to be about. And I'm super proud of everybody that shows up every week. And for those of you that watch the replay, really, really proud of all of you guys too. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, all right. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Peace out.